Picture a city that considers itself the most civilized place on Earth, the greatest empire in human history, the centre of science, literature, medicine, industry and moral progress. A city of 3.5 million souls, queen of the known world, crowned with soot and pride in roughly equal measure. Now picture what that city smells like. Go on. Really try. You've got coal smoke, obviously. That's the top note. The thing that sits over everything like a lid on a pot. London, in 1872, burned so much coal that on certain winter mornings the air turns a particular shade of yellow-grey that people have stopped noticing because it's simply what air looks like. Under that, horse. Approximately 150,000 horses work in London at any given moment. Each one produces roughly 30 pounds of manure per day. That's 2.25 million pounds of horse manure deposited onto London streets every single day. By teams of men called crossing sweepers who earn their living clearing a small patch of road so that ladies and gentlemen can cross without ruining their shoes. Under the horses, the river. The Thames at low tide in summer has a smell that Victorian journalists described as a stench so powerful it caused members of Parliament to hang curtains soaked in chloride of lime over the windows of the Houses of Commons. That was only 14 years ago, during what they called the Great Stink of 1858. They've built a sewer system since then. Basil gets sewers, one of the genuine engineering miracles of the age. But it's still the Thames. It still catches everything. Under the river, people. 3.5 million people living in varying states of access to clean water, adequate plumbing, and the basic ability to wash the grime of London off their bodies before it eats into their skin. And here is the thing that gets me. Here is the thing that I think about when I walk through the reconstructed Victorian rooms in museums, past the gleaming soap dishes and the beautiful ceramic wash basins with their painted flowers and their little matching pictures. The Victorians were obsessed with cleanliness, truly, genuinely obsessed. The evangelical churches preached it. The temperance movement connected it to moral purity. The medical establishment, slowly, haltingly over decades of argument, began connecting it to the prevention of disease. Cleanliness is next to godliness wasn't a cliche yet. It was an active, urgent social philosophy. And yet for roughly 2/3 of London's population, actually getting clean, genuinely, thoroughly, all over clean, was nearly impossible. Not because they didn't want to be, not because they didn't try, because the infrastructure didn't exist, because the cost was prohibitive, because the physical and logistical reality of their lives made even the simplest act of washing the back of your own neck into a small daily negotiation with poverty. So, I make these history stories, and I genuinely don't know if you listen to them to fall asleep or if you just like hearing about the specific texture of Victorian poverty in granular, slightly uncomfortable detail at 11 o'clock at night. Either way, I respect it. Subscribe if you want. Get settled. Tonight we're going to live one day in the life of someone who knows exactly what water costs, how far you have to carry it, and what it feels like to spend your whole working life in it without ever feeling clean. Here we go. Your name is Mary Ellen Briggs. You're 15 years old, and you have been awake for 40 seconds, and you already know it is going to be a bad morning because you can feel the cold. Not ordinary cold. Not the kind of cold that a blanket fixes. This is the particular cold of a room that has no fire, no glass in one of the windows. It broke in November, and the landlord has not come. And 4 people sleeping in it, whose combined body heat has been steadily losing its argument with a February night for the last 7 hours. The cold has got under your blanket while you slept. It has taken up residence in the tips of your fingers and the small of your back and both of your feet, which went to sleep pressed against your sister Lizzie, and have now been abandoned as Lizzie has rolled to the other side of the mattress in the night. You lie still for a moment and listen. From below, through the floorboards, the sound of Mr. Dontague coughing. He coughs every morning, a wet, rattling cough that sounds like something is loose inside him. He has been coughing like that since before your family moved into the rooms above his 3 years ago. You have stopped thinking about it. You have stopped thinking about what it means. From the street, a cart already, though the sky through the broken window is just starting to go from black to the particular dark grey that is Victorian London's version of dawn. The wheels on the cobblestones make a sound like distant thunder, slow, grinding, rhythmic. From somewhere in the building, you're not sure which floor, a baby crying. It starts and stops and starts again, thin and reedy, the way hungry babies cry, different from the angry crying of babies who want attention. Hungry crying has a kind of resignation in it that you recognise even though you cannot name it. Your sister Lizzie is 8. She's breathing steadily, her back a warm curve pressed against you. Your brother Thomas is 6 and he sleeps the way he does everything, which is at full intensity. One arm flung out, mouth slightly open. He has stolen most of the blanket without noticing. Your mother is not in the bed. This means it is later than you thought. You push yourself upright, and the cold rushes in to fill the space your body occupied, and you make a sound that is not quite a word, something between a grunt and a surrender. The mattress is straw and rags stuffed into a ticking that your mother sewed herself 4 years ago. The straw has compacted over time into hard, uneven lumps. One of these lumps sits directly where your left hip bone goes, and every morning you peel yourself off it with the same thought. Today I will move that lump. And every night you fall asleep without having moved it, because by the time you get home, there is no light and no energy and no real point, because it will just compact again. Your feet hit the floor. The floor is bare boards, cold as iron. The cold shoots up through the soles of your feet and doesn't stop until it reaches your knees. You're wearing your dress. You sleep in your dress in winter because the alternative is wearing just your shift, and there is not enough blanket in this room for that to be practical. The dress is grey wool, the colour of it having started as something else years ago. Navy, maybe, or dark green, and washed so many times in hard water and inadequate soap that it has given up its original opinion of itself. The bodice is tight across the shoulders because it was made for you when you were 13, and you have grown since then in the shoulder, if not in much else. You do not have a mirror. There is no mirror in this room. There is no mirror in this building that you are aware of. You know what you look like mostly from the surface of still water, and occasionally from the expressions of people looking at you, which is an imperfect method. What you know, your hair is brown and thick and currently braided down your back from yesterday. You will need to redo it this morning. Your face, well, your face is your face. Your hands are the most important part of you for working purposes, and they look it. The knuckles are cracked. There is a seam of something dark under each fingernail that does not come out no matter how you scrub, because it has been there long enough to become part of you. You are 15 years old, and your hands look 45. This is not a complaint. This is just information. You stand up fully and immediately your head grazes the ceiling. The ceiling in this room is low. It is the attic room, the cheapest in the building, which cost your family 3 shillings and sixpence a week, and is considered, by the standards of Whitechapel in 1872, not terrible. You have a window. You have a fireplace, though coal costs money, so you do not always have a fire. You have a locking door, which matters enormously in a building with 17 families and 1 set of front stairs. You have a basin. 1 basin. Let me tell you about the basin, because this is the whole story, really. Everything else is just context for the basin. It is a white ceramic basin, 12 inches across, with a blue stripe around the rim that is chipped in 3 places. It was your grandmother's. When she died, it came to your mother as part of an estate that also included a wooden spoon, a Bible with the first 14 pages missing, and approximately 6 shillings of debt. The basin is the only thing in this room that has ever been new. Or rather, it was new once before you were born in circumstances you can only imagine. It has been used every day since. Every morning someone fills it, not from a tap. You do not have a tap. There is no running water in this building. There is 1 standpipe in the court outside, shared between your building and the 2 buildings that face it. The standpipe is turned on by the water company which controls it for approximately 2 hours in the morning. Sometimes it is turned on at 5, sometimes at 6. Sometimes, for reasons nobody explains, it is not turned on at all. When it runs, you fill whatever you have. Your family has a large tin pail, roughly 4 gallons capacity, and a smaller jug, roughly 2. Your mother goes down first while the light is still grey, while her husband is still sleeping, and she fills both. She carries them up 2 flights of stairs in the dark, 1 in each hand, and sets them on the hearth. That water has to last. That water is everything. Drinking water, cooking water, washing water. It is the water your father will use to shave his face over the basin before he goes to the docks. It is the water your mother will use to wash Thomas's neck before school. It is the water you will carry in a small jar to your workplace and drink at intervals through the day to fight off the particular dehydration that comes from spending 12 hours in a room full of steam. There is no question of bathing in it, not in the sense that you perhaps imagine when you think of bathing, not a full body wash, not a tub, not warm water and soap and 5 minutes of private luxury. Bathing in this household means you stand in front of the basin. You wring out a cloth in the water, cold, because there is no fire to heat it, except on Sundays when coal can be spared. You wipe your face, you wipe your neck, you wipe under your arms, you wipe your hands and forearms. You put your feet in the basin 1 at a time, which your father hates because he says it wastes water, and he is not wrong. That is bathing. That is what clean means. And even that inadequate ritual, it has a hierarchy. It has rules as rigid as anything you'd find in a country house with footmen and a proper upstairs bathroom with a porcelain tub and copper pipes. Your father goes first. Always. Not because of cruelty, not because he demands it, because he goes to work first, because his work is outdoor labour at the docks where his appearance determines whether a foreman picks him out of the crowd for a day's wages, because a man with a visibly dirty face and neck might not be chosen, because not being chosen means the family does not eat. So your father goes first. He is Thomas Briggs, 41 years old, built wide across the shoulders from years of loading and unloading cargo at the West India docks. He has a face the colour of old brick, and hands like slabs of cured leather. When he washes his face in the morning, the cloth going across his forehead, down the sides of his face, under his jaw. The water in the basin turns the colour of milky tea. He's not unusually dirty. He's the ordinary amount of dirty for a man doing his work in his world. The water turns brown. Then your mother refreshes it slightly from the tin pail and washes her own face, her own neck. She does it quickly, efficiently. She's been doing it this way for 20 years. She does not linger. She does not splash. She uses approximately a quarter of what you would if left to yourself. She is Margaret Briggs, née Walsh, 38 years old. She has a dark line running from her left ear to her jaw, where the skin went wrong after a scalding 7 years ago. A pan of boiling water, an accident, a morning just like this one. The scar has a different texture to the skin around it, slightly tight, slightly shiny. You've stopped seeing it most of the time. When you do see it, you think about how close it was to her eye. Then the children, oldest to youngest. That's the rule, unspoken, understood. You at 15, then your brother George, 13, who works at the match factory 3 streets away, then Lizzie, 8, then Thomas the youngest, 6. By the time the cloth reaches you, the water in the basin is grey, not quite the clear grey of fresh water, a deeper grey with a slight film on the surface that catches the early morning light and does something faintly iridescent that might be beautiful under different circumstances. You wash your face in it anyway, because it is the water there is. This is the first fact of your life. Your mother is at the fireplace when you get downstairs. Downstairs meaning you step through the single door of your room into the communal corridor, and the fireplace is in the corner of the room you're already in because your room is all the rooms. There is the space where you sleep, and there is the corner with the fireplace, and there is the space between them, and that is your home. She's got the small iron pot on the grate and she's making porridge. The smell of it hits you as you come down the ladder-steep stairs from the sleeping level. This building has half levels, one of the architectural economies that allows 17 families to be stacked inside a building designed for perhaps 4. And for a moment, just a moment, the cold and the grey and the ache in hip and the itching in your unwashed scalp all recede slightly. Porridge smell, hot, oat something, faintly smoky from the fire. Your mother does not look up. Water's on the washstand, she says. The washstand is a wooden shelf her husband built along one wall, wide enough to hold the basin and the jug and a cracked bar of soap in a dish that was once, if you look carefully at the letters pressed into its base, a proper soap dish from a proper shop, the kind of thing sold on Oxford Street rather than from a barrow. You go to the basin. The water in it is already the colour that means your father has used it and your mother has used it, grey and slightly cloudy. You cannot see the bottom of the basin through it. You plunge the cloth, a strip of old sheeting, soft from 100 washings, the edge frayed down to threads, into the water. The cold. It is immediate and total. The cloth absorbs the cold and delivers it directly to your palm and your fingers, and you make no sound because you have never made a sound about the cold water. Ever. Because what would be the point? You wring the cloth out over the basin, watch the water fall back in threads, grey-tinted. You press it to your face, cold, wet. The smell of the cloth, soap, faintly, from its last washing, but underneath that something else, something you cannot name because it is the smell of water that has passed over 3 other people's skin, and it is just the smell of your mornings. You have never known mornings to smell different. You wash your face, forehead, cheeks, the sides of your nose, under your jaw. The cloth comes away with a film of grime that makes you feel, for one complicated moment, both better and worse simultaneously. Better, because you can feel the skin where it's been cleaned, slightly cooler, slightly tighter. Worse, because the cloth confirms what you suspected, which is that last night's sleep did nothing to solve the problem of your face. Your neck, the back of your neck where the hair touches the skin, is always the worst. You have to reach around with the cloth and press it there and scrub a little, which means the cold water drips down inside your collar and you make a sound then. Not a word, just a sound, under your arms. This part you do facing the wall, your back to the room, not because anyone is looking. Your mother is stirring porridge and paying you no attention, but because this is how you've always done it. Some things are private even when nothing is private. The water in the basin is now several shades darker than when you started. You rinse your hands. The soap is carbolic. It is always carbolic. It is the cheapest kind, a hard brown bar that smells like coal tar and lye, and something almost medicinal. You have used carbolic soap your entire life. You will use it your entire life. Later, when you are old, if you get to be old, the smell of carbolic soap will put you immediately back here, in this room, at this basin, with February outside the window, and porridge on the fire, and your mother not looking up. You dry your hands on the drying cloth. The drying cloth is grey. Not from dirt. It gets washed regularly. Your mother is rigorous about this. But from the particular fate of all white cloth in Whitechapel in 1872, which is that white does not survive here. White is a colour that requires clean water to maintain, and clean water is expensive, and so everything fabric in this household has found its own level, which is grey. You rebraid your hair, standing at the washstand, working by touch and habit, your fingers dividing the hair into 3 sections and beginning the weaving that you have done every morning of your conscious life. Your hair is thick and it catches at your fingers, and there is a tangle at the nape of your neck from sleeping on it, and you work through it with your fingers rather than a comb, because combs cost money, and the one comb in this household belongs to your mother. Porridge is ready. You eat standing up, because there are only 2 stools and 1 chair and 6 people. Let me stop here and tell you something. In 1872, London has roughly 350,000 houses. Of those, somewhere in the region of 150,000 have no piped water at all. Not inadequate piped water, not unreliable piped water, no piped water. Water collected from standpipes or wells or the river, or purchased from water carriers who sell it by the bucket. Even in houses that do have piped water, many of them middle-class homes in the better neighbourhoods, the water comes on only for a few hours each morning. You fill your tanks and barrels while it runs, then it stops, then you use what you stored. The idea of turning on a tap and having water come out whenever you want it, in whatever quantity you want, hot or cold, this idea does not exist yet for most people on Earth, and it absolutely does not exist for anyone in Whitechapel in 1872. Bathtubs in poor households are not a standard piece of furniture. A survey done in London in the 1880s found that fewer than 1 in 10 working-class homes contained anything that could be described as a bath. Most of them didn't even contain a washtub large enough to sit in. A washtub was for laundry. Laundry was valuable. You did not put your body in the laundry tub. The laundry tub was for the things you were going to wear, which creates a particular problem, which creates the problem, actually, of the entire Victorian working class. How do you wash your clothes when washing your clothes requires the same water you need for drinking and cooking and washing your face? You don't. Not often. Not as often as the clothes need it. Not as often as the smell requires. Clothes in a poor Victorian household get aired. They get beaten with a stick to knock the dust loose. They get spot cleaned, specific stains dabbed at with a rag and a bit of lye solution. They get hung near the fire on wash days to drive out the worst of the damp and the smell. They get washed. Occasionally, when circumstances allow, when there is enough spare water, enough soap, enough coal to heat the water, enough time in a life that does not have much time, once a fortnight if you are lucky, once a month if you are not, you're wearing the same dress you wore yesterday. And the day before that, you will wear it tomorrow. The dress smells of you, of your work, of the particular combination of lye and steam and wool sweat and Whitechapel air that is just your smell, your personal atmosphere, the invisible fact of you that you have stopped noticing, but that others, specifically the women in the better household where you sometimes make deliveries, notice immediately. You have seen it. The slight flicker of something across the face of a housekeeper when you come to the kitchen door. Not disgust exactly, not cruelty, just acknowledgement of fact, the way a doctor acknowledges a patient's condition. There, noted, filed away. It is possible to feel humiliated by something you cannot change. You know this. You have felt it many times. You finish your porridge. You do not lick the bowl, though you want to, because Thomas is watching, and he is 6, and he will remember everything and tell your mother. Bowl, your mother says, not looking up from where she is ladling out Thomas's portion. You put the bowl in the washing up basin, a different basin from the wash basin. This basin is tin, dented along the rim, and it lives on the floor next to the fireplace. You put on your coat. Your coat is not really adequate for February, but it is the coat there is. Dark blue, or it was once, wool, the lining partially detached at the left shoulder so you can feel it sliding when you walk. The buttons are mismatched because one of the original buttons was lost 2 winters ago and replaced with one from a different garment that is slightly larger and a slightly different shade of brown. You wrap your scarf around your neck. The scarf is knitted, brown, made by your grandmother who is dead now. It is very long, and you wrap it twice. It is the warmest thing you own. Come straight back after, your mother says. This means do not spend any money. Do not be delayed. Be back before dark, because dark is when this street becomes a different street. A street that has different rules and different inhabitants. Yes, Mum, you say. You open the door. The cold falls in like a wall. The court where you live is called Providence Court, which is a Victorian joke if you think about it hard enough. It is roughly 60 feet long and 20 feet wide and has been divided up by various stages of informal construction until it is more like a tunnel with appendages than a courtyard. At one end, the standpipe, iron, painted green once, now mostly rust, with a handle you pump up and down. At the other end, the privy. There are 2 privies for the 3 buildings facing this court. 47 people, approximately, depending on which families have babies and which babies have survived the last 6 months. 2 privies. You do not think about this ratio anymore. You have never known any other ratio. The court is in the middle of its morning cycle when you come out. The standpipe hour has already been and gone. It runs at 5:30 in winter. Your mother is always there at 5:25 waiting. Now it is just after 7 and the court has a Saturday morning energy, which in Whitechapel in 1872 means most of the men have already gone to work because dock work starts early and doesn't wait, and the women are moving between the buildings and the privy and the standpipe, which still has a thin trickle running from it even though it is technically off, and the children who are not yet old enough for factory or schoolwork are simply present, existing in doorways and corners the way small children exist, their faces still creased with sleep. Mrs. Halloran from the ground floor of your building is at the standpipe with a bucket, coaxing the last of the trickle into it. She is a wide woman in a dark shawl, and she nods at you as you pass. "Morning, Mary Ellen." "Morning, Mrs. Halloran." This is the entire conversation. Everything else goes without saying. The cold, the standpipe, the colour of the sky, which is the particular yellowish grey that means coal smoke is winning. You step over a puddle that may not be just water and turn left out of the court into Brushfield Street. Brushfield Street is alive. Not alive in the way that middle-class Londoners of 1872 mean alive. Not the bustling commercial life of the Strand or the genteel animation of Kensington. Alive the way a wound is alive, constantly working, raw at the edges, never quite settling. Carts, already 4 of them that you can see, the horses steaming in the cold, the drivers hunched on their benches with their breath in visible puffs, a milk float with its metal churns clanking at every cobble, 2 men carrying something heavy between them, a piece of machinery wrapped in canvas, grunting with each step, a dog, ribs visible even through its rough coat, investigating the gutter with its nose. The smell of the street hits you as it always does when you leave the court. It is not worse than inside exactly, but it is different, less personal. The coal smoke is heavier out here, the river smell faintly detectable even this far north, the smell of manure sharp and immediate from the street itself, and underneath all of it, the particular smell of Whitechapel in winter, damp wool, boiled cabbage, tallow from the chandlers, something chemical from the tanneries 2 streets over that gets worse on warm days. And today, being cold, is merely background. You pull your coat tighter and walk. Leake's Commercial Laundry is on Commercial Street, which is named for exactly what it does, which is to serve as the main artery of commerce through this part of East London. The building is 3 stories, brick, with small windows high up on the wall, and large double doors at the loading entrance that stand open from 6 in the morning until 9 at night, winter and summer, because the laundry never entirely stops. You have worked here for 2 years and 3 months. You started at 13, which was not unusual, which was, in fact, the standard entry point for a girl from your street, your neighbourhood, your precise level of the economic hierarchy that Victorian London operates like a piece of precision machinery, each class and subclass in its designated position, the whole thing functioning on the principle that the people at the bottom will always need the money badly enough to do whatever work there is. The foreman's name is Mr. Leake, who is also the owner's brother-in-law, who has a face like a boiled potato and a habit of standing just slightly too close when he speaks to you. You have learned the precise distance to maintain. You have learned it without anyone teaching you. You learned it the way you learn most things in this life, which is by paying very close attention to what happens when you don't. The other girls are already there when you arrive. You're not late. You're almost never late. Lateness costs you 1/4 of a day's pay, which is 3p and 3p matters, but some of them live even closer than you, and they have beaten you in. Nellie Marsh, 17, who's been here longest of anyone your age and knows everything about how the place works. Nellie has forearms like a man from The Ringing, and her hair is always pinned back so tight it gives her a slightly startled expression that is nothing to do with how she feels about anything. Agnes Potter, 14, knew enough that she still cries sometimes at the end of the day from the steam and the standing and the weight of the wet linen. You recognise this. You remember crying from the same things. You do not cry from them anymore, which is both a relief and a mild loss. Two older women, Mrs. Davies and Mrs. Ford, who do the ironing in the back room and who have a separate social world among themselves that does not include you, and you have never tried to enter. And Ellen Dobbs, 15 like you, who lives on the next street over and walks to work with you on the mornings you have not overslept, which is most mornings. Ellen has a gap between her front teeth and a laugh that sounds like something mechanical, and she is the person in your life who most reliably makes things easier by existing. You look frozen, she says when you come in. I am frozen. Kettle's on. The kettle is on the small iron stove in the corner that Mr. Leake permits the girls to use for hot water, because a girl too cold to use her hands properly is a girl producing slower work, which is the only calculation that makes the kettle an acceptable expense. You stand next to the stove for 30 seconds with your hands spread over it, feeling the warmth come back into your fingers in painful increments. Your knuckles are red and cracked, and the cracks at the base of 3 of your fingers have opened slightly again, the way they do in cold weather, the skin having given up trying to hold itself together. You do not have any ointment for them. Ointment costs money. You have heard that some of the other laundry girls use lard, which is cheaper, and you have tried it twice, but the smell stays on your hands and gets into the work. Ready, Nellie says from across the room. She does not mean, are you emotionally or physically prepared for the day? She means, it is time to start, and if we don't start now, Mr. Leake will come in and make the specific sound he makes when he is calculating the cost of delays, which is a sound like a man chewing on something unpleasant. Ready, you say. You put on your apron. Here is what the laundry looks like, so you understand where you're spending the next 12 hours of your life. The main room is roughly 40 feet long and 20 wide. The ceiling is low and the windows are high, which means the light is always insufficient and the steam has nowhere to go. On mornings like this one, cold outside, hot inside, the boiler's running since 4 in the morning, the air in the main room is a specific kind of dense white grey that you breathe in and feel sitting in your lungs. Not quite steam anymore, something beyond steam. A warm, wet fog that has been breathed by 6 women already, and will be breathed by 6 more for the next 12 hours. By 10 o'clock it will be so thick near the boiler that you cannot see clearly across the room. Along the left wall, the boilers. 2 of them, large iron tanks that are heated from below with coal fires tended by Tommy, who is 11 and the only male presence in this room most days, and who regards the work of tending fires with the seriousness of an engineer. The boilers contain the hot water that the laundry is done in. Along the right wall, the wash tubs. 6 of them, large wooden tubs on wooden frames, each one roughly 3 feet in diameter and 2 feet deep. When full of hot water, and laundry they weigh, you have thought about this. More than you do, probably. More than Tommy. Possibly more than 2 of you together. Down the centre, the ringing boards, the hanging frames, the sorting tables. At the back, the ironing room, which has its own ecosystem and its own heat source. and which is the province of Mrs. Davies and Mrs. Ford and the heavy irons that live on their own heating rack and get lifted and pressed and returned and reheated 40 times an hour. The smell of the laundry is the smell of your hands, the smell that lives in your skin now below the regular daily accumulation of Whitechapel grime, worked so far into the fabric of your actual person that you suspect you will smell of it when they bury you. Lye, soap, hot water. The particular clean dirty smell of other people's laundry, which is different from the clean smell of clean things and different from the dirty smell of dirty things. It is the smell of intimacy without consent, the smell of knowing without being invited to know exactly how other people live. The laundry comes from 3 sources: hotels, sheets and tablecloths, and pillowcases, and the thick white napkins that go on tables in dining rooms where nobody who works here has ever eaten. These come in huge wicker baskets tied with twine, with a paper tag indicating the date they need to go back. They're usually the most straightforward, if heaviest. White cotton, simple to sort, simple to wash. The staining is predictable: gravy, wine, the occasional blood. Things people do in beds and at tables. Households. The private laundry of families who are not wealthy enough to employ a laundress full-time but comfortable enough to not do their own washing. These are your most interesting and your most disgusting. More interesting because the garments are individual, specific to specific people. You can tell a great deal about a family from the state of their laundry. More disgusting because individual people are more disgusting than the averaged out staining of hotel tablecloths. And the hospital, which sends a special order every Thursday and which, unlike the other laundry, has its own processing protocol involving a boil wash that runs considerably hotter than ordinary laundry, and a separate set of tubs that are scoured out after use. The hospital laundry is handled by Nellie and Mrs. Davies, and nobody asks you to do it, and you do not volunteer. You are on the household laundry today. The first basket is already on the sorting table when you get there. You untie the twine, open the lid, and the smell hits you before you have fully registered it. You learn in this job to breathe through your mouth. You learn it in the first week, after the 3rd time you recoiled from the smell of a basket opening and Nellie laughed. Not unkindly, because Nellie is not unkind, just with the understanding of someone who's been recoiling for 3 more years than you, and said, "Mouth, love, always mouth." You learn that the smell of laundry tells you what happened since it was last washed. Some of it is simple: sweat, mud, grease from cooking. Some of it is complex: the ammonia smell of urine in the bed linen of old people, the particular sharpness of a child's nightclothes, the close animal smell of unwashed bodies that have been pressed against fabric for days or weeks. You learn to not think about the source. You learn to treat it as the chemist's problem it is. What compounds are present, what treatment is required, how long to soak and at what temperature. You've never been to school, but you have a working knowledge of the properties of lye, the behaviour of grease in hot water versus cold, the way certain dyes run in heat and must be washed cool. You know that blood should be washed in cold water, never hot, because hot sets it. You know that silk, which comes occasionally in the better household orders, must be handled differently from cotton, quickly and gently, the way you'd handle something alive. You know things that no school teaches, because school does not teach laundry. School teaches reading, writing, arithmetic. Things done with the mind. The things done with your hands and your back and your chapped and cracking knuckles. Those you learn by doing them for 12 hours a day from the age of 13. This first basket is a middle-class household. You can tell from the fabric, cotton, reasonably good quality, a few flannel items, and from the staining, which is the ordinary staining of ordinary life. A man's shirt with a ring of grime at the collar, a tablecloth with a long brown wine stain, 2 children's pinafores with the knees dirty and the cuffs worse, several nightgowns which you shake out and assess quickly, finding them unremarkable, no worse than usual. At the bottom of the basket, underneath everything else, wrapped in a piece of brown paper, a woman's corset. You hold it up briefly. It is a thing of real construction, boning, complex seaming, the work of a skilled corset maker, and it is in a state that suggests it has not been washed in some months, possibly longer. The sweat staining at the underarms and along the back seams is significant. The smell is the contained, concentrated smell of a body that has been enclosed in this garment for many months, the fabric having absorbed everything it could and then continued absorbing. You put it in the pre-soak pile without expression. You've learned not to have an expression about the laundry. "Did you hear about the Jennings girl?" Ellen says. "She's working at the next tub, her arms plunged to the elbows in hot water and suds, a sheet bunched in both hands, working it against the ridged board. Her sleeves are rolled up, her forearms are red." "Which one?" "The older one, Alice. She went for a position, up near Kensington." Ellen pauses, works the sheet harder against the board. "They turned her away." "Why?" "Because..." Ellen pauses again. There is something in her pause that tells you she has already thought about this a great deal, and that thinking about it has not made her feel better. They looked at her hands. Silence, except for the sound of water and the shift and grunt of wet fabric, and the low hum of the boilers. "Her hands," you say. "Her hands." Ellen lifts the sheet from the water and begins to wring it, twisting the wet cotton with both arms, her whole upper body involved in the motion, water running down her forearms and dripping onto the floor. "The housekeeper said she wasn't suitable, that she looked like she'd been doing rough work, said a parlour maid needs to look." She makes a sound. "Presentable, presentable." You look at your own hands, currently gripping the sides of the washtub, red from the hot water, the knuckles cracked and slightly swollen, the skin at the base of your index finger where it keeps splitting, a thin dark line that is the crack in the skin and not, as far as you can tell, ever going to heal while you are doing this work. There are girls. You've seen them sometimes going in and out of the better houses in Commercial Street, whose hands look nothing like yours. Soft hands. Hands that have spent their time on needlework and piano keys and light domestic tasks that do not require plunging them repeatedly into boiling water and lye solution. Those girls can become parlour maids, can wear a proper uniform in a warm kitchen, can have regular meals and a room of their own, or at worst shared with one other person rather than 5, and a situation that involves clean hands at the end of each day. Alice Jennings's hands look like yours, because Alice Jennings has been doing rough work since she was 12, because there was nothing else for her, same as there was nothing else for you. And now the fact of the work has disqualified her from escaping the work, which is a kind of logic so circular it should be funny. It isn't funny. You do not say any of this. You and Ellen do not say it to each other. It doesn't need saying. You put your arms back in the water and keep working. By mid-morning the steam is thick enough that you can taste it. Breathing in the laundry on a full boiler morning is like breathing inside a warm, soap-scented cloud that has been slightly used. It coats the inside of your throat. It sits in your lungs in a way that feels not uncomfortable exactly, but occupied. Like your lungs are doing two things at once. Your hands have been in hot water, in and out, for 4 hours. They have moved past the stage of feeling raw and arrived at the stage of not feeling much at all. This is a mercy of a kind. The cold of this morning feels very distant. Your back hurts. This is not news. Your back has hurt from the second week of working here, and it will hurt until you stop, which will not be today. The pain lives in the lower back, just above where your hips are, a constant low-level ache that gets worse in the afternoons and disappears only when you're lying flat. You have told no one about it. What would be the purpose? Break, Nellie says. This means 10 minutes. Nellie's 10 minutes are not negotiable. She manages the time in this room like a ship's captain manages a crossing, with absolute authority and a clear sense that the alternative is chaos. You straighten up. Your back makes a sound like a twig snapping that is alarming the first few times you hear it, and is now simply the sound your back makes when you move suddenly. You go to the stove. Tommy has kept the kettle hot. You pour water over the tea. A dark, strong tea that is not good tea. It is the tea that comes in a paper packet with no identifying information, and tastes primarily of tannins and something slightly burnt. And wrap your hands around the mug. The warmth goes through the ceramic and into your palms and up your forearms, and you close your eyes for a second and just receive it. Your knuckles again, Ellen says, not unkindly, nodding at your hands around the mug. The crack at the base of your right index finger has opened again, visibly. There is a dark line in it. You say. Mrs. Halloran says mutton fat. I tried lard. It's the smell. It's the smell, you agree. There is a pause. The 10 minutes of break is a specific social space in the laundry day, bounded by Nellie's announcement of it and the resumption that follows. Within it, a certain quality of conversation is possible that is not possible during work. Not because the work is loud, it isn't, but because work requires a kind of interior attention that does not leave room for the particular quality of honesty that comes out in 10-minute breaks. My mum is talking about getting a mangle, Agnes says from near the stove. She is the newest, and she often says things that have not yet been shaped by experience into more guarded forms. What sort? A proper one, with rollers. Agnes stirs her tea with a finger. She thinks it would save time. Nellie, without looking up from her own mug, where's she going to put it? A silence. Agnes's family has, as far as you know, a single room on Goulston Street. She hasn't worked that out yet, Agnes says in a smaller voice. Where's she getting the money? Even smaller. She hasn't worked that out either. Nellie nods. This is not cruelty either. This is the specific generosity of people who will save you from embarrassment before you've committed the full version of the embarrassment. Time, she says. You put down your mug and go back to the tubs. Let me tell you about lye. Lye is potassium hydroxide or sodium hydroxide, depending on how it is made. What it is, in practical terms, is a very strong alkaline solution that dissolves grease, breaks down organic compounds, loosens and lifts staining. It is what makes laundry soap work. It is what the Romans used. It is what women in every century have used because it is cheap and effective and available, and because nobody who makes decisions about what women use has ever used it themselves. It destroys skin. Not all at once. Not dramatically. Not the way you'd imagine acid destroying something. More gradually. More patiently. It draws the moisture out of the outer layers of the skin. It breaks down the oils that keep skin flexible and intact. after a sustained period of contact, years of it, 12-hour days of it, skin in and out of lye solution from the age of 13. The hands of a laundry worker have a particular quality, thick in some places, raw in others, with cracks that go deeper than normal skin should crack, with a tendency to bleed in cold weather, with a texture that is not quite right, that does not feel the way skin is supposed to feel. The women who have worked in laundries for 20 years, you have seen them, you will become them, possibly, have hands that tell the story of every day of their working life as clearly as rings tell the age of a tree. You are 15, and your hands are already beginning to tell the story. You do not know the name lye, you know the word soap. You know that the soap does what it does because of something caustic in it. You know the word caustic in the sense of the thing that burns. You do not know the chemistry. You know the results. You plunge your hands back in and keep working. The lunchtime break is 30 minutes, from 12 to 12:30 by the clock on the wall that Mr. Leake checks approximately every 4 minutes between 11:45 and the moment he announces it. You eat outside when the weather allows. Today the weather does not allow. You eat inside, sitting on upturned crates near the loading doors that stand open, just enough to let the cold air in. Your lunch is 2 slices of bread and a piece of hard cheese wrapped in cloth. Your mother cuts this in the morning, and you carry it in your coat pocket, and the cheese has acquired, over the course of the morning, some of the warmth and smell of your pocket, which is not unpleasant. The bread is day-old, which is fine. Day-old bread is slightly denser, slightly drier, and considerably cheaper than today's bread. You eat it and feel the specific satisfaction of not being hungry, which is not the same as feeling full, but is its own distinct and valuable sensation. Through the open loading doors, a slice of commercial street, the constant motion, a cart waiting while the driver haggles with a delivery man, 2 women walking quickly, heads down, shawls wrapped against the wind, a crossing sweeper at the corner, a boy of maybe 10, working his broom through the accumulated muck at the junction where 2 streets meet, creating a narrow, clean path for pedestrians who will pay him a penny to use it. You watch the crossing sweeper work. He sweeps steadily, methodically, clearing the filth to the sides. For 30 seconds the path is clean. Then a horse goes through, and it is not clean anymore. He sweeps again. His hands, you notice, are black, not dirty dark, black. The black of the street itself, worked into the skin over hours and days and months. He is working to make clean something that will immediately be made dirty again, so that people who can afford cleanliness can pass without soiling themselves. You eat your cheese and watch him work and feel something that is not exactly solidarity because you don't have that word, but is something adjacent to it, a recognition, a sense of the same logic operating at different addresses. "What are you looking at?" Ellen says. "Nothing," you say. The afternoon is when the real weight arrives, not just in the back and the shoulders, though those continue their reliable ache, in the legs, which have been standing for 6 hours and will stand for 6 more, in the particular kind of exhaustion that comes from repetitive heavy labour, with no variation, no interruption, nothing to engage the mind. Your hands work, your arms work, your back works, your mind drifts. Sometimes, in the afternoon, your mind goes to strange places. Today, it goes to water, specifically to the idea of clean water. Not the grey basin water of your mornings, not the hot soap-heavy water of these tubs. Clean water. The kind you've seen once on an errand to a house in Bloomsbury where you were sent with the delivery, in a glass pitcher on a kitchen table, the pitcher full of water so clear you could see the bottom of the pitcher through it, the water looking like glass itself but moving. You don't know what that water tasted like. You were not offered it. You stood in the kitchen doorway with the delivery and the housekeeper took it from you and thanked you shortly, and closed the door. But you have thought about that pitcher of water many times since. What you have, and what that household had, were technically the same substance. Water, H2O, though you do not know that formula. 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen, which is not information available to you in 1872, unless you have had the kind of education that is not available to girls from Providence Court, Whitechapel. What you had, and what they had, were the same thing, in the way that a candle and a chandelier are the same thing, technically, logically, and completely differently in every practical sense. Your family's water, collected in the dark, carried up 2 flights of stairs, shared among 6 people, used for everything, replaced once per day if the standpipe cooperates. Their water, pipes, taps, come in when called, as much as needed, always. Your back is making the statement it makes around 3 o'clock, which is a statement about structural limits. You have learned to negotiate with it. If you stand differently, your weight shifted slightly, your left hand on the edge of the tub, your right arm doing most of the work. The pain moves to a part of your back that is slightly less insistent. You do this for a while, then your arm tires and you shift again. You cycle through positions, the way a person cycles through the few comfortable positions available in a small cold bed. The pile of laundry is smaller. This is how you measure the day. Not in hours. The clock is behind you, and looking at it too often makes the afternoon longer somehow, a discovered fact of laundry psychology. But in the pile. The pile was high this morning. It is lower now. It will be low by 5. It will be gone by 6. The pile is your objective, your purpose, your measure of success. You're wringing a sheet when it happens. The sheet has been in the tub for the recommended soaking time and you have pulled it out. Both arms. The weight of it is considerable. Soaking wet white cotton is heavier than it has any right to be. And you're twisting it to wring out the water, both hands gripping, your whole body rotating in the ring, when the crack at the base of your right index finger opens fully. Not a lot, maybe 1/4 of an inch, but fully. You can feel it happen. The skin separates with a specific sensation that is not quite pain, not at the moment of it, but that you know will be pain in a moment. The way a fall has that half-second between the fall and the feeling. You look at your hand holding the wet sheet. The crack has opened and is bleeding a little, not dramatically, just a fine red line. You wrap it in the hem of your apron, apply pressure for 30 seconds, and go back to wringing the sheet. This is what you do about it. This is what there is to do about it. Nellie notices later when you are hanging the sheets. She sees your hand on the wooden frame, and she does not say anything, but she gets the small tin of pine tar ointment that she keeps for herself at the back of the stove. She has her own. She buys it with her own wages. She's been here long enough to allocate money for it. And she puts it on the sorting table beside you. You look at her. She's gone back to her own work without comment. You open the tin. The pine tar ointment is dark brown and smells strongly of trees and something medicinal. You work a small amount into the crack with your thumb, pressing gently until it stops stinging and starts doing something that might, over time, help. "Thank you," you say to her back. tomorrow, she says, which means bring your own tomorrow, which means this is a professional expense, not a charity, which means you should know by now that your hands are tools and tools require maintenance. You put the tin back. It cost 4p. You make it. You calculate it. Walking home that evening, your feet on the wet cobblestones, the cold settling back into your hands despite the ointment. 7 shillings a week. That is your wage. 7 shillings for 6 days, 12 hours a day, 60 feet of standing in steam and lye water. 4p from 7 shillings leaves 6 shillings and 8p, of which you give your mother 6 shillings because this is the arrangement, and the 8p is yours, which is the margin on which a 15-year-old girl navigates the city, and out of which 4p for pine tar ointment is not nothing. You think about it for most of the walk home. You stop at Mrs. Levy's shop on Wentworth Street, which stays open late, which sells everything, which is organised by some principle of organisation known only to Mrs. Levy herself, and yet somehow always produces the item you are looking for from the depths of its impossible inventory. Pine tar, you say, the small tin. Mrs. Levy looks at your hands, which are resting on the counter. 4p, she says. I know. You put the 4p down. You walk home with the tin in your pocket, pressing against your hip through the coat. Smaller than you expected. Lighter. When you get home, you put it on the washstand next to the basin. Your mother sees it. She does not ask. She knows what it means, and where the money came from, and she says nothing, because what is there to say about the physics of survival, which is just the physics of survival, and saying something would only turn it into a different kind of thing. Supper's nearly, she says. Saturday night. Let me tell you about Saturday night, because in this household, in this year, in this neighbourhood, Saturday night means something specific. Saturday night means the bath. Not a bath as you might now imagine it. Not a long hot soak in a porcelain tub. The full wash. The proper wash. The one that happens once a week, when the week's accumulation of Whitechapel and laundry and lay and cold mornings and grey basin water gets addressed, as far as it can be addressed, with hot water, soap, and the privacy that Saturday nights afford. Here is how it works. Your father goes first. Always. He fetches the tin bathtub from the landing outside where it lives leaning against the wall. It is roughly 3 feet by 18 inches, barely large enough to sit in with your knees pulled up, and brings it inside and sets it in front of the fireplace. Your mother heats water, multiple pots, multiple trips, the fire stoked high. This costs coal. Coal costs money. The Saturday night bath is factored into the weekly budget the way rent is factored in. Not optional, because if you do not wash once a week, the smell of you becomes impossible in close quarters, and the possibility of vermin increases, and the church on Sunday mornings which your mother attends with regularity becomes a different kind of experience. Your father sits in the tub with his knees up around his ears, and your mother pours water over him, and he washes his hair and his body with the carbolic soap, and then he stands up and wraps himself in the single, large piece of cloth that serves as the bath sheet, and he dresses and he goes upstairs. Then your mother empties some of the water. There is a bucket reserved for this, and adds more hot from the pot on the fire, because the water is grey now, the same grey as the basin water, but more so, carrying the week's accumulated work off his body. Then your mother washes, then the children, oldest to youngest. By the time you get in, which is fourth of the children, The water is the temperature of slightly warm tea and the colour of slightly used water. Not dirty in the way that makes you recoil, not clean in the way that makes you feel clean. You sit in the tin tub with your knees folded up, and the fire crackling close enough that one side of you is uncomfortably warm, while the other is in the cold of the room, and you wash your hair, which is the thing you most want to do, the thing that makes the most difference to how you feel. By dunking your head into the water and working the carbolic through your scalp with your fingers. The carbolic makes your eyes water if it gets in them. You keep your eyes closed. The water in your hair is already slightly grey from the tub. You do not think about this. You rinse as best you can, wringing your hair out and leaning toward the fire to dry it. You wash the rest of yourself, your back, your feet, which you press against the bottom of the tub, feeling the lukewarm water covering the tops of them, the soles of your feet, which have been inside your boots all week and have opinions about this. You stand up, dripping onto the floor. The fire is close enough that you can feel it on your legs, which are cold everywhere that the fire doesn't reach. You dry yourself on the cloth that has already dried 5 other people and is still damp from doing so. But it does what cloth does, which is absorb water, and you are dry or dry adjacent within a few minutes. Your hair smells of carbolic. Your skin smells of carbolic. You smell clean, or you smell of the cleaning agent, which in this context is the same thing. For Saturday night and most of Sunday, until the cold smoke and the Whitechapel air reclaim you, you are clean. This is the reality of personal hygiene for a working class girl in 1872. Once a week, fully, every morning, the grey basin water, the rest of the time, the accumulated evidence of a life lived in close quarters with coal smoke and lye and the city itself. 2 weeks later, on a Sunday morning when your mother is at church and your father has taken the younger ones to the park, which exists, a small park, created 15 years ago as part of the improving movement that provided small parks in areas like this one. The theory being that fresh air and green space would improve the moral character of the poor, which theory has not been fully tested because the park is small and the people who need it are numerous. You follow Nellie Marsh to the public baths. You have heard of them. Everyone has heard of them. They opened on Goulston Street 6 years ago, 2 separate facilities in one building. The laundry on the ground floor, where you can wash your clothes for a penny, and the baths upstairs, where for another penny you get a clean towel, a bar of new soap, and 30 minutes alone in a room with an actual bathtub. An actual bathtub, porcelain, with water from a tap, hot and cold from separate taps, mixed in the tub itself. Nellie has been going for a year. She goes on Sunday mornings when the queue is shorter. "Come on," she said yesterday at the end of the shift, wrapping her apron and putting it on the hook. "I'll show you." You said yes before you'd fully decided, which is sometimes the best way to say yes to things. The baths are on Goulston Street, which is 10 minutes from your house, which you walk quickly because the morning is cold and Nellie walks fast regardless of temperature. She's explaining the system as you go. The first and second class baths. You pay more for first class, which means a bigger room and better towels and theoretically better water pressure, though Nellie has tried both and says the difference is not worth the extra halfpenny. The building is plain brick, institutional the way Victorian public buildings are institutional, not ugly exactly, but designed to communicate purpose without warmth. A set of doors with a small sign above them. a smell coming out when the doors open that you cannot immediately identify because it is a new smell. Clean, hot, mineral. The smell of very hot, clean water in an enclosed space. You stand in the doorway for a moment. "Come on," Nellie says, not unkindly. Inside, a corridor, a window with a woman behind it. The smell's stronger now, and a distant sound of water running. There are 3 women ahead of you in the queue, all of them working class, all of them in their Sunday clothes, all of them with the look of people who know exactly what they're here for and are ready to receive it. "Second class for 2, Nellie says at the window. 2p each. You have 2p. You put it on the counter. The woman behind the window gives you each a piece of cloth. The towel, which is large and thick in a way that the bath sheet at home is not, and a bar of soap in white paper. You unfold the paper slightly and look at the soap. It is white, pale, pure white, different from the brown carbolic bar you've used every day of your conscious life. You bring it close to your face and breathe in. It smells of nothing particular. Clean, faintly. Something floral at the edges. It smells of absence. The absence of coal tar, the absence of heavy industrial process, the absence of cheap. It is just soap, but it is white, and it is new, and it is yours for 30 minutes, and you fold the paper back over it carefully. "Cubicle 4, the woman says to you. 30 minutes. The bell rings at 25. Be out at the bell." You go down the corridor. Cubicle 4 is a door. You open it. It is a small room, perhaps 6 feet by 8. The walls are white tile. The floor is white tile. There is a hook for your clothes. There is the tub. The tub! It is a proper bathtub. Cast iron, enamelled white inside, clawfoot, standard Victorian public bath design. It is roughly 5 feet long enough to lie in, or to sit in with your legs extended, which is not something you have done in water before because the tin tub at home does not permit it. There is a tap at one end. 2 taps. One says H, one says C, the letters pressed into the metal. You stand and look at it for a moment. The tile walls reflect the morning light from a frosted glass window near the ceiling. The room is warmer than anything you've been in today. Warm and slightly steamy from the previous occupant. You turn on the H tap. Hot water comes out immediately. Without you having heated it or carried it or done anything, you put your hand under it and the heat is... Your hand is cold from the walk and the heat going into it from the running water is... You stand there with your hand under the tap for approximately 30 seconds, just receiving it. Then you turn on the C-tap slightly and find the balance and fill the tub. You've never filled a bathtub before. It takes longer than you expect. Watching the water level rise, the steam coming off it, the sound of it filling the room with warmth. You test it with your elbow, the way your mother taught you to test the temperature of anything going near a child, and you adjust the taps until it is hot without being unpleasant, and then you turn the taps off. The water is clear. You can see the bottom of the tub through it. Not the grey of your basin water, not the grey of the Saturday night tub water. Clear. The colour of water when nothing has come before it. You undress. You hang. Your clothes on the hook. You're wearing fewer layers than you will in a few hours because it is Sunday, and Sunday means slightly better clothes, but still. The dress, the bodice, the shift, the stays that your mother made you start wearing 2 years ago, and that you're never entirely comfortable in. You fold them on the hook. You get into the tub. The water comes up around you slowly as your weight displaces it, and you lower yourself, and you sit with your legs extended. which they are long enough to extend because this tub is made for an adult body, not a tin tub designed for economy. And the water comes up to your waist, and you sit. Just sit. The hot water on your skin, your cracked knuckles submerged. The cracks sting briefly, sharply, and then the heat overwhelms the sting, and what is left is just warmth going into your hands and your arms and your back, and you lean back against the slope of the tub, and the water comes up to your chest and you close your eyes. No one is waiting. No one needs the water after you. No grey water accumulating from previous bathers. No cold. Just 30 minutes. You, the water, the white soap unwrapped from its paper on the edge of the tub. The water is clear. You lie in it and feel it being clear. After a moment, you reach for the soap. It lathers differently from carbolic, differently in the way that a thing made with some care and some additional ingredient lathers differently from a thing made as cheaply as possible. It is not richer. It is a penny soap, not expensive, not particularly fine. But it lathers more easily, it spreads more smoothly, and it does not sting the crack in your finger when you work it in. You wash your hair, submerging your head, which you have to hold your breath to do, feeling the water close over your ears and forehead, the world going suddenly quiet and muffled, then the hot water in your hair, working the soap through with both hands. You rinse by submerging again. The water is getting slightly grey. You notice this. You cannot not notice it, because you have spent your whole life noticing what colour the water is. But it is a different grey, a fainter grey, the grey of clean skin releasing the morning's grime rather than the deep grey of a week's accumulation. You're actually getting clean. Not just the top layer clean of your morning routine, the cloth and cold water clean that is the best the basin can offer. Clean all the way down. Clean in the places that the morning cloth never reaches. Clean in a way that you will feel for several hours after you get out and walk back through the coal smoke and the cold. You wash everything twice. You use the entire bar of soap, which is wasteful, and you know it. But you also know that this is yours, that you paid for it, that nobody is waiting for it, and so you use it until it is a thin sliver that you cannot hold anymore, and then you dissolve the sliver into the bath water by pressing it against your palm. The bell rings. 25 minutes. You do not want to get out. You lie in the grey clear water for another 30 seconds, feeling the warmth, listening to the sound of the tiles and the distant sound of the corridor, and the faint dripping from the tap that does not quite fully shut. Then you stand up. The air hits you as you break the surface. Cool after the water, you reach for the towel. The towel is thick, real cotton, rough dry from institutional laundering, but thick enough to actually dry you rather than moving the wet around. You press your face into it and breathe in the clean smell of it, the same institutional smell as the room, mineral and hot and clean. You dry yourself with the particular thoroughness of someone who has not had this experience before, and intends to make it count. You get dressed, your clothes go back on over clean skin, which is a particular sensation. The shift against clean skin, the stays over the shift, the dress over everything. You're putting your same clothes back on, the same grey dress that has been worn since Monday, that smells of the week, and they feel different against clean skin. Not better, exactly. Not worse, just real, actual. The interface between you and the world, where it usually is, rather than a layer of accumulated grime between you and your clothes and everything else. You braid your hair, your fingers in your clean hair working through it. No tangles from the hot water. The carbolic smell replaced with something lighter. You look at the water in the tub. A pale grey. The grey of one person, 1 week, addressed. You pull the plug. The water drains. The sound of it, spiralling and diminishing, is oddly satisfying. The grey water going away, the tub returning to white porcelain, clean again, as if you had not been here. You find Nellie in the corridor outside, her own hair still slightly damp, her face with a quality it does not usually have, which is the quality of a person who has been briefly relieved of something. "Well," she says. "Well," you say. Neither of you says anything more than that. There's nothing to say that the monosyllable doesn't contain. The hot water and the white soap and the 30 minutes alone in a warm room and the clean skin under your dress are facts that do not require commentary. Outside, the Sunday morning streets of Whitechapel are doing their Sunday thing, quieter than weekdays, fewer carts, a different quality of pedestrian, more people in their better clothes, heading to church or coming from it, a smell of cooking from several windows, Sunday dinner preparations. You walk home beside Nellie. "Every week?" you ask. "Every week," she says. 4p, 2p each way if you split it, which means out of your 8p, 4p for the bath and 4p for the pine tar ointment, and if both are needed in the same week, there is nothing left. You do the calculation, not in your head as an abstraction, in your actual body, in the specific physical awareness of what is cheap and what is not, what costs and what remains after it costs. This is mathematics as survival, and you have been doing it since you understood that money was the distance between having things and not having them. 4p. That is the price of being clean. Really clean. You earn 7 shillings, which is 84p. You give your mother 72. You have 12, of which, if you do not spend it on ointment or the baths, 12p. 12p at the end of a 60-hour working week for a 15-year-old girl who spends those 60 hours making clean the sheets and tablecloths and corsets and shirts of people who could not have told you her name. 12p is your margin. You've spent in the last 2 weeks 8 of them on the pine tar and the bath. This is not a complaint. This is arithmetic. The cholera returns in April. Not dramatically, not all at once. The way cholera comes to neighbourhoods like yours is not the way it is reported in the newspapers afterward, with their narrative of catastrophe and response and eventual victory. The way it comes is a rumour first, a woman on the court 2 over, then a child, then a man from the dockwork, then it is not a rumour. You know about cholera in the way that people who live near dangerous things know about them, specifically, practically, with a clear-eyed accounting of what it means, rather than the abstract horror of people who read about it in newspapers. You know that it comes from water, not from bad air, which is what most people still believe in 1872, the miasma theory, the idea that disease rises from the ground and travels through smell, which is why the Great Stink caused such panic in Parliament, because Parliament believed that if it smelled bad, it would kill them. Dr. John Snow proved that cholera comes from contaminated water 17 years ago, during the Broad Street pump outbreak of 1854. He removed the handle from the pump and the outbreak stopped. But the germ theory of disease is still being argued about in 1872. Pasteur's work is known to some doctors. It is not known to most people. You certainly don't know it by name. What you know is, when cholera comes to Providence Court, you boil the water. Your mother begins boiling the water the day Mrs. Halloran's grandson gets sick. She does it without announcement, without explanation, without waiting to see if he actually has cholera or just a stomach complaint. She boils every drop of drinking water, every pot of cooking water. She's not wrong about the mechanism. She does not know the mechanism, but she's right about the result, the way people are sometimes right about things through accumulated wisdom rather than formal knowledge. Because the accumulated wisdom of poor communities about how to survive in places like this is a form of knowledge even when it has no formal name. The water takes longer to carry when you boil it first and wait for it to cool. It takes more coal. Coal costs money. But you boil it. Mrs. Halloran's grandson gets better after a week that is very bad, and then not bad, and then better. 3 people in your court are not so lucky. An older man 2 buildings over, a young woman on the same landing as the Donohues, a baby from the building at the far end which you did not know well, whose parents carry it out one morning, and the only indication of what happened is the silence after the door closes. The silence is very loud. Your family does not get sick. Your mother's insistence on the boiling and the strict hierarchy of the boiled water, drinking only, no washing. The washing water is cold water from the standpipe, and you will not drink the standpipe water until the notice comes down. Keeps you all, by some combination of luck and her specific vigilance, out of the category of names that get added to the register at the church on Commercial Street, where they are logging the cases and the deaths in a ledger that will be examined by the Metropolitan Board of Works in a report that will not come out until 1874 and will be read by perhaps 40 people. What the 40 people reading the report in 1874 will not know, because it is not in the report, is what it felt like to boil drinking water in a single iron pot over a small fire with 4 children watching, and a husband who comes home from the docks each night carrying whatever he has carried from the air near the river, and knowing, not knowing the word bacteria, but knowing the thing itself, the invisible peril in the water that comes out of the standpipe, that the difference between safety and sickness is a boiled pot and your mother's vigilance. Your mother's vigilance is not in the report. Her intelligence is not in the report. The fact that she makes a decision correctly before the decision is scientifically endorsed, based on 40 years of watching neighbourhoods like this one and understanding what survives and what does not, that is not in the report. The report discusses infrastructure, pipe diameter, drainage catchment, pump station placement. The report is not wrong. The pipes are important. The drainage is important. But you stood in this room and watched your mother make decisions that kept you alive, and the mechanisms of those decisions were in her body and her hands and her knowledge of how things work, and they are not in any report. In May, a thing happens that you do not tell anyone about immediately. Not Nellie, not Ellen, not your mother. You keep it for several days, turning it over quietly, the way you might keep a coin you found before deciding what to do with it. The laundry gets a new account, a household in Bermondsey, one of the larger accounts, a family with several servants and a large house, and the laundry output of 8 people, plus the household linens. It comes to Leeks through a referral, another household account, and Mr. Leek, in his initial meeting with the housekeeper, agrees to the terms and assigns the account to the main floor team. You are part of the main floor team. The first consignment comes on a Monday. Nellie divides it up among the tubs, and you get 2 baskets. The standard household linens and what Nellie calls the personal order, which is the family's clothes. The personal order contains, among other things, the clothes of the family's daughter. She's approximately your age. You know this not from being told, but from the clothes themselves. The cut, the sizing, the proportion of a girl 15 or 16 years old. The dress is a light blue cotton, better quality than anything you own, and the style of it, the cut of the sleeves, the shape of the bodice, is several years ahead of anything you have seen on anyone in Whitechapel. You hold it up briefly to shake it out before sorting it. The staining is minimal. Light at the underarms, a small mark at the wrist that looks like ink. You think, this girl did something today that left ink on her cuff. She sat at a desk and wrote something. She leaned on the paper and the ink transferred to the cuff, and she probably did not even notice because it has been washed before and will be washed again, and this is what clean clothing looks like when you can generate it this easily. You think she is approximately your age. You do not think this with resentment exactly, not with bitterness, with something more complicated than either of those things, a kind of precision, a kind of clarity about what it means that two girls of roughly the same age, in the same city in the same year, can have lives so different in their daily textures that the closest they will ever come to each other is one pair of hands washing the other girl's dress. You put the dress in the tub. You wash it carefully. Lye solution in the right concentration for this fabric. You know by instinct the right dilution. You have learned it through doing it, through the texture of the water and the behaviour of the fabric, through the accumulated knowledge of 2 years and change of this work. You do not damage the colour. You do not distort the shape. You rinse it until the rinse water runs clear. You hand it to Nellie for the lined because you do not iron the lighter garments. That goes to Mrs. Davies. By the following Monday it will be in a basket going back to Bermondsey, and the girl with the ink cuff will put it on again without thinking about who washed it. This is your work. This is what you do. You keep being good at it. Summer comes to Whitechapel in its usual manner, which is to take everything that was merely unpleasant about winter, the cold, the damp, the inadequate light, and replace it with a different set of unpleasantries, all of them hotter and more fragrant. The laundry in summer is its own particular challenge. The boilers make the room, already warm from the work, into something that makes you dizzy. In the first hour, if you forget to drink enough water, the steam that was atmospheric discomfort in February becomes almost physical in July. You move through it. You drink from the jar you bring. You take the 10-minute breaks at the loading door where the air, while still warm and coal-scented, is at least moving. You get better at the job. Not obviously, not in a way that announces itself, but you notice toward the end of summer that you are faster than you were last summer by a margin that adds up to approximately 1 basket per day. You notice that Nellie asks your opinion on fabric treatments the way she used to only ask Mrs. Davies. You notice that when a difficult stain comes in, a silk piece with wine staining that has dried, Mr. Leake asks you rather than Nellie, quietly in the morning before the others arrive, what you think should be done. Cold water soak first, you tell him, overnight if possible, then a glycerine application before the wash, not after, and not above hand hot. Any hotter and the silk will mark permanently. He does not say, thank you. He nods once and walks away. You do what you said and the stain comes out without damage to the silk. He gives you a halfpenny extra at the end of the week, folded into your wages without comment. You spend it on the bath. The penny baths over the following months become a regular fact of your life rather than a revelation. You still notice the hot water. You will always notice the hot water, you think, in the way that you will always notice the absence of something you went 15 years without. But it becomes yours, your Sunday thing. The 30 minutes of warmth and privacy, and the white soap and the clear water that is yours alone. You do not have much that is yours alone. The bath is yours. Nellie goes with you most Sundays. Sometimes Ellen. On the days when you have the extra halfpenny from competent silk stain removal, or from Nellie's occasional and quietly given personal loans, you get the first-class bath, which is larger and has better water pressure and a small shelf for the soap. You do not linger longer than 30 minutes even in the first-class bath, because there are women waiting, and you know what it is to wait. You are getting good at this life, not in a triumphant way, not in a story with an obvious lesson way. You are not accumulating toward a visible transformation. You will not, in the foreseeable future, have soft hands or a position in a good household, or the kind of life where the grey basin water in the morning becomes someone else's problem. But you know things now. You know the temperature at which lye damages silk. You know the correct technique for pressing a shirt collar with a flat iron so that it does not pucker. You know the properties of carbolic soap and the comparative properties of milled white soap, and you know, with absolute certainty, the difference between the smell of clean water and the smell of water that has been used. You know that the difference between your life and the life of the girl with the ink-stained cuff is mostly water. Not just the water in the tub, not just the taps and the pipes and the limitless hot water of a house that can afford it. The water is a symptom of the difference. The difference is the whole system that decides who gets the water and who carries it, who produces the clean and who receives it, who is invisible and who is seen. You know this. You are 15 and then 16 and then working on 17, and you know this with the specific, embodied, fingertip knowledge of someone who's been inside it every day of her working life. It does not change the system, but it is a kind of knowledge. In October, on a morning when the first real cold of autumn has come overnight and the water in the basin is colder than it has been since spring, you're washing your face before work, the cloth against your face, the cold water, and you stop. Not dramatically, not for long. You just stop for a moment, holding the cloth to your cheek, and you are aware of the specific texture of this moment. The cold cloth, the grey water, the smell of carbolic soap, the sound of your mother in the corner by the fireplace, the sounds of the court outside, the sound of London waking up, beginning its day, the great machinery of the city moving into motion again. You're in the middle of everything that is your life, every specific thing of it, the cracked knuckles, the lye smell in your skin, the 60 hours of labour that stand between you and this same moment next Sunday, the twopence for the bath, the pine tar ointment, the tin pail by the door waiting to be carried to the standpipe, the grey water in the basin that you are washing your face in for the second consecutive year, and will wash your face in for how many years to come you cannot know, and also the hot water of the Sunday bath, the white soap, Nellie's tin of ointment on the sorting table, the silk stain that came out clean and the halfpenny folded into your wages, the specific satisfaction of a thing done well with your hands, even when your hands are the tools of the work and not the beneficiaries of it. You hold the cloth to your face, the cold is exact. You are here. You're 15, no, 16 now, since August, and you're exactly here, in this room, in this year, in this life, and the cold cloth on your face is completely real. The winter goes, Of course it does. Winters always go, which is not obvious in February but becomes obvious in the accumulation of days. The standpipe unfreezes. The coal in the brazier lasts slightly longer between fillings as the temperature climbs. The steam in the laundry becomes a nuisance again rather than the only warm thing in the room. You earn another halfpenny, then another. Nellie shows you the ironing. Not the everyday ironing, the sheets and shifts and ordinary household linens, the fine ironing, the difficult ironing, the silk and the lawn and the fine cotton that Mrs. Davies has been doing for 6 years, and that represents, in the hierarchy of the laundry, the most skilled work in the building. It takes you 3 weeks to not destroy something. It takes you another 2 weeks to be merely competent. It takes you the rest of the spring to be good. You are good at the fine ironing. You feel the iron's temperature through the handle. You know, without a thermometer, without any formal measurement, when the iron is at the right temperature for silk versus cotton versus linen. You know this the way you know the temperature of the bath water, the way you know the concentration of lye solution, through your hands which are damaged and cracked, and will always be cracked, which have been building this knowledge for 3 years now. Your hands are your most important tools. You maintain them. You buy the pine tar ointment every week now, from Mrs. Levy's shop, 4p, the small tin. You treat the cracks every night before bed. They do not heal entirely. They are the hands of a laundry worker. They will always be the hands of a laundry worker. But they are your hands, and they know things. Here is the end of something, or the beginning of it, which is the same moment turned over. On a Sunday in June, the June you are 16, the summer Whitechapel is almost tolerable for a few weeks when the wind comes from the right direction. You're in the second-class bath on Goulston Street, and the water is hot and clear, and the white soap is new, and you are doing nothing, just lying there, not washing, not rushing, with 3 minutes still on the 30 and nowhere to be. You're thinking about the girl with the ink-stained cuff, which you think about more than you intend to, not with resentment, but with a kind of ongoing curiosity about parallel lives, about the identical age and the different textures of experience. She's somewhere in Bermondsey, probably, on a Sunday, in a bedroom with a mirror, in a house with running water and a proper bathtub that she does not share with 5 other people. And she has no idea, probably, that someone washed her dress, that someone handled the specific details of her fabric week after week with enough skill to keep it looking like it should, that someone learned her cuffs and her collar and the particular staining of her specific life. You know her laundry. You do not know her name. She does not know your name. This is fine. This is the arrangement. But you know things now, about hot water and cold water and the difference between them, about the grey of a basin that has been shared through too many hands and the clear of water that is only yours, about what it costs to be clean in a world that expects you to produce cleanliness without explaining how you will access it yourself. You know the weight of a wet sheet, the resistance of soaked wool, the specific sting of lye in a cracked knuckle, the way a silk stain responds to cold water before hot, the temperature of an iron on cotton versus on silk, measured not in degrees but in the nerve endings of your palm. You know things that will never be in a report. The water is cooling now slightly. You have been in it long enough. You reach for the towel, and now it is night. The Sunday of this or another week. They begin to be the same week, in the way that seasons are the same season, in the way that lives are the same life. proceeding from one thing to the next with the great engine of necessity driving them forward. You are in the attic room. Lizzie is breathing steadily beside you. Thomas is sprawled in the way he always is, sprawled with his whole heart. The broken window is replaced now. Your father fixed it in November. Brown paper and pine pitch. Not perfect, but adequate. The sounds of Whitechapel at night come through it anyway. Distant, varied. A cart. Voices somewhere, arguing in the specific rhythm of an argument that has been had many times before. A dog. The church bell that is, at this hour, marking time for no one in particular, just marking it. Your hands lie on the blanket. You can feel them. Not the ache of the working day which fades, the particular texture of them against the rough blanket fabric, the skin of them, your hands. They are the hands of a laundry worker. They are the hands that have washed 10,000 garments belonging to people who do not know they exist. They are the hands that know the temperature of silk and the weight of wet cotton, and the precise dilution of lye for a fine blue dress that someone's daughter spilled ink on once and did not notice. These are your hands. They are what they are, and tonight they are warm enough, and still enough, and your eyes are getting heavy the way eyes do at the end of real labour, the heaviness that is honest, that has been earned, that is nothing but the body requiring its due after a day that demanded everything of it. These sounds of the city get quieter, or you listen to them less. Out there, London goes on. The night shift at the factories, the watermen on the river, the link boys in the dark streets with their pitch torches, the gin shops that do not close, the night soil men working in the hours when the city's not watching, the boilers in the laundry cooling from a full day's work, the stone floor of the washroom wet from the day's labour, waiting for morning. Morning will come. It always does. You will get up. The room will be cold. You will go to the washstand. The basin will be grey by the time it reaches you, grey in the way it has been grey every morning of your life, and will be grey for the foreseeable future, and you will wash your face in it anyway because it is the water that is there. And then you will go to work, and then, on Sunday, the bath, the hot water, yours, and then the week again. This is not a tragedy, this is a life, your life, the life of a girl in London in 1872 who has learned the specific gravity of water, the weight of labour, the precise cost of being clean in a world that is not designed with your cleanliness in mind. This city will change. Slowly. It is already changing. The pipes that Basil get built are under the streets right now, carrying the sewage away. The germ theory is being argued about in lecture halls, and within 20 years it will have changed what doctors know about what makes people sick and what keeps them safe. The water companies will eventually be obliged to provide continuous supply. The public baths will multiply. You will not see all of it. You're 16. You will see some of it. But right now, in this room, in this year, these are the facts of the world. The cold water, and the hot water, and the basin, and the bath, and the lye, and the cracked knuckles, and the white soap, and the clear water, and the grey water. The hands that know the difference. You are warm enough, you are safe enough, you're exactly here. The city breathes outside the window. The bells somewhere mark time in the dark. The blanket is thin, but you have pulled it up and Lizzie is warm beside you, and the last of the coal smell from the day's fire is still faintly present in the air of the room. Your eyes are closed now. Let the sounds fade. Let the ache in your back soften into nothing. Let your hands lie still on the blanket, the cracked knuckles, the pine tar working its slow patient repair, Your hands that know things. Let the grey water go down the drain. Let the clear water fill. Tomorrow will come with its basin and its cold and its work. But that is tomorrow. Right now there is only this, the breathing of your sister beside you, the weight of the blanket, the dark behind your eyelids. The bells mark something distant. You have already stopped counting. Sleep takes you the way the water fills a tub, slowly, then all at once, until you are in it, warm and surrounded, no longer the person watching but simply the person resting. Somewhere beneath you, London continues. It will always continue, but you have stopped listening for tonight. Good night. If you want to know how much Leeks Laundry paid its girls in 1872 versus what equivalent work pays today, adjusted for inflation, that is either a very short or very long answer depending on how angry you want to get. The short answer is not enough. The long answer is, here are all the ways that's still true. Subscribe if you want. I'll be back. Good night.